Okay, good morning. How's everybody doing? Well, day two is going to be very exciting, so we're going to try to kick it off with a boom. Yesterday we heard about sector transformation in the Gatsby session, and then Ken and Joe touched on the power of demonstration effects. So what I want to do this morning is to make it concrete. 3 countries, 3 transformations. Cambodia, where in the mid-1990s the garment industry barely existed. Today it generates 1/3 of GDP. Costa Rica, a country of 5 million people that's now home to over 1,000 multinationals, and one of the leading suppliers of medical devices to the United States. And Morocco, our host for the week, where the automotive sector is now the leading vehicle export industry in the continent and one of the leading suppliers to the EU. 3 countries, 3 transformations, 3 different sectors, 3 completely different stories. And one big question would be, how can we explain this? Somewhat oddly, I think economists often reach for a word that you wouldn't expect, and that word is miracle. We frequently say the East Asian miracle. And we use that word, and it does some real heavy lifting, right? It tells people that what happened was exceptional. But what it also does is it sort of suggests that it's unrepeatable. It's not for countries like yours. And in our work, sitting with policymakers and investment agencies, ministries of industry, we kept getting some of these same questions. How did that country do that? How did they grow that sector? What was different about them? Okay, sure, yeah, but how did change actually happen? We knew the famous cases. We would dig up details on some of the lesser known ones. But we thought, okay, I think others might have some of the same questions. And so we tried to address it systematically and at scale. So we went back to 1995 and we looked at the export data at the sector level from across the world. And what we did was we asked, where did something genuinely remarkable happen? Where did a country go from marginal to globally significant in a specific sector? And specifically, we looked at where did a country make a leap 15 spots in the global sector rankings and land in the top 60. And what we found was 82 export booms across 42 low and middle income countries. And this is across 9 sectors. 82. That's not so rare. That's a lot of miracles. So it's more like a pattern. I think a pattern can be documented and studied and learned from. And what we did was build a tool to try to capture all that. And that's what the Export Boom Atlas is. It's an interactive map of every one of those 82 booms, the sectors, the anchor firms, the government policies that helped enable transformation, the leaders that made the calls. And so every dot on the map is a documented boom. You can filter by sector, you can search by region, and you can find a boom that looks most like what might happen in your country. And for each one, you can get this full story, the outcomes, the key actors, what the public sector did, what the private sector did, what were the external conditions that made it possible. That's the Export Boom Atlas. So let me show you what it looks like. In Cambodia, in 1995, garment exports were about $60 million. Today, it's upwards of $13 billion. It's 198 times larger. The sector employs 900,000 people, the majority of which are women, often in their first formal job. So what happened? There were forces converging in the late 90s. Rising costs in China pushed manufacturers to look elsewhere. Key trade agreements with the US and the EU created a window, and the country was ready to step through that window. A key reform in 1994 made Cambodia one of the more open investment regimes in Southeast Asia. There were tax holidays, supports for investors, one-stop shop type of support. And a key company, Taiwan's GTI, moved in. And with them, they brought capital and they bought buyers. Reebok and Adidas among them. And others followed. Other investors from China and Hong Kong, they did the same, and that solidified Cambodia's place in a global value chain, whereas today, the sector accounts for about a third of the country's output. You can take Costa Rica. It's a country many of us know for a beautiful rainforest, for great coffee. The country has also quickly and quietly become a hub for global medical device manufacturing. And so going from under $100 million in exports to about $7 billion over the last many years, and now accounting for upwards of 40% of the country's exports. The government established a free trade zone regime. They built Cindy into a very capable investment promotion agency that genuinely held investors' hands. They also built intellectual property standards, workforce standards that were specifically designed to meet the needs of global medtech companies. And there was an anchor investor, Abbott Laboratories, set up a plant in 2000. That company helped train a skilled workforce. They proved Costa Rica as a reliable sourcing destination. They pulled local firms up the value chain. And interestingly enough, USAID also helped support workforce development efforts to help build this sector. So there's public sector commitment, private anchor investment, and the right external conditions and support. For Morocco, I'm not going to tell that story. We have someone who's much more close to it, and you'll hear from them shortly. So please do look forward to that. Now, there's no silver bullet or magic recipe. No two booms are identical. But across the 82 cases, we kept seeing kind of the same ingredients appear again and again: the right public leadership, the right anchor investment, and the right external conditions. So in public leadership, what does that mean? That's a government that sets strategic direction, clears hurdles with policy reforms and public inputs. It's leaders that pick up the phone and get things done and stay consistent. For anchor investment, it's about pioneering firms and early movers that bring critical know-how. And they take the risk and they prove the sector is actually possible. And around them, they then catalyze entire ecosystems. And the external conditions, they also matter. It could be a trade agreement, an FDI wave, a supply chain shift. Booms don't happen in a vacuum. They happen when a window of opportunity opens and a country is ready to step through them. So none alone is meant to be sufficient, but all three together, they can be very powerful. And what the Atlas helps you understand is in each particular case, how did these forces combine in which ways to make change happen? There's one finding that I think surprised us quite a bit when we dug into the data, and that's that 16 countries had recorded 2 or more booms, and they accounted for basically 54 of the 82 that we recorded. That's about 2/3. And so what we like to call this now is the export snowball effect. Each boom builds something that helps make the next one more likely. That might be infrastructure, policy capability, a skilled workforce, credibility with investors. So productive know-how, it accumulates. Those early wins create the conditions for more complex sectors to emerge. Vietnam is sort of the clearest example. In the database we have, I think they've recorded 9 booms, 1 in each sector. And there's sort of the Doi Moi reforms, the free trade zones, export zones that helped power the textiles boom in the 90s. And some of those same infrastructure capabilities then helped the country attract companies like Samsung, LG, Intel, and become a global electronics hub. That one may be more well-known. I think Honduras has actually embarked on a somewhat similar path. Companies like Gildan, Fruit of the Loom, helped power a textiles boom. And again, some of the same zones, capabilities were used to attract companies like Lear into electronics. And the country has gone from sort of essentially zero electronics exports to now $1 billion or so. So we created the Atlas basically for people like you, for policymakers, for funders, for anyone working on these questions in practice. The idea, again, isn't a silver bullet or recipe, but it's playbooks for other countries. They're here, not as prescriptions, but as ideas and patterns to learn from. Maybe countries that looked like yours, sectors that worked in similar conditions. At the very least, it's a starting point for asking better questions. And somewhat beyond the practical of learning, we really do hope it serves as a source of inspiration. If you look at the map, there's 82 booms, 82. From across the world, all different regions. Each one is enormous in magnitude and impact. So I would hope, you can see that others have done it. It's not a miracle. It's more possible. It's within reach. So we started with 3 countries, 3 transformations. That one question, how did it happen? The Export Boom Atlas, it's one sort of step towards understanding and answering that question. We do see it as a living project, and we'd love to add more cases, more depth, more stories. So please do take a look. Tell us what we missed. Even better yet, tell us what we can do and help us improve it. You can take a look at exportbooms.org, and thank you.